Greetings, everyone. This is Jennifer Harris with Whole Story Counseling, and we are continuing with our series on cutting the cord, creating adult parental relationships that are free from obligation, that are free from the roles, expectations, demands of our family system. So just quickly to recap, if you haven't caught our previous installments of this series, the premise here is to examine what it looks like to create relationships between adult children and their parents and other extended family members that are free from obligation and the twin arms of obligation, demand, expectation. In order to release those and to receive and replace these relationships with those that are driven by love, that are driven by mutuality and goodness and connection in a way that sets both parties free to choose, free to be their own person, autonomous, to be, instead of obligated, to be empowered, to be in what one professor at the Seattle School taught of co-powered, where both are equals, both are mutual relationship partners, both have equality rather than hierarchy, which often is the basis of most parental relationships into adulthood. So keeping from there, I began last time with debunking some myths and started with a biggie, talking about what it is to deal and wrestle with the commandment to honor thy father and thy mother, talking about how naming the truth of the relationship is a significant part of honor. Truth telling is vital to honor. So today we're going to talk about a similar piece, similar myth to this honoring piece, which is the often named phrase, but they're my family. But they're family. But that's just who they are. I hear you. Hear you loud and clear. And this might be a short episode. We'll see. Here's my response. Shouldn't we have the expectation? Yes, I'm choosing that word carefully. But shouldn't the expectation of those who are called to love us best be that those who are loving us best are the ones who treat us the best? I'm curious where the expectation shifted so that family relationships, family loyalty, loyalty to the system of family, turned on its head to allow poor treatment, to allow mistreatment, to allow abuse, and be excused for it. That does not sit well with me at all in so many respects, whether it's from a psychological perspective, whether that's from a theological perspective, and whether that's from the just valuing of a human being on a planet, on this planet, I should say. Why does, but they're my mom, but they're my dad, but they're my fill in the blank related by blood? Why does that give them permission to treat me badly, with the secondary implication that I just have to suck it up and take it because they're family, because they're blood? In my opinion, those who have been set in families are called to love each other the best out of anybody else on the planet. And yet, as we look around, we can see that that is not often the reality. Even people who claim religious affiliation, who claim psychological growth, who claim I'm getting therapy, I'm getting counseling, I am working on my stuff, still allow that blood relationship or adopted relationship. When you are adopted, just a little side, I did not realize that until recently someone shared with me that when you are adopted, that connection in legal terms is more binding than if you were born into a family by blood. So the bloodline maybe isn't the best way to name it, but to say, have I been brought into this family too? Um, for children, whether by adoption, whether by natural birth, whether by family situations where children come to live with people, children are brought into a family parental relationship. They don't do the bringing, they are the brought. And when they are brought into that family relationship, I believe that it is a fully legitimate and unirrevocable expectation of the child to expect their parent to be a parent in the best sense of the word. As they grow, to train them, to give them the tools that they need that set them on a path of human flourishing. And a big piece of that is the turn that happens when that child reaches adulthood and begins to find their own personhood on the planet, when they start to individuate themselves from the family system and they start to become their own person. Often this is where parents double down. They question choices, they make judgments and assumptions and demands based on what they know and feel comfortable with, when at that time is the best time to allow a little space for that child to, yes, even fall on their face so that there's still a little bit of structure and containment around those consequences. Once adulthood is reached, it is the parent's role to redefine how they parent. They're no longer child. But that doesn't happen. Too often, the parent still assumes that they have full right and authorship over their child. And so even when that child, now adult, makes choices to become and build their own life, to become fully adult, marriage, children, careers, moving where they are actually located, the parent continually asserts and inserts themselves into those decisions because in their mind, they still have that right and authority. So one of the biggest issues is for these adult children to be able to start to separate themselves to make their own choices based on their gut, based on their emotions, based on their personality and style and convictions, rather than being dominated by the parental voice in their head or in their ear. This is what you should do. This is what I think. This is what I believe you should do. That does not make space for an equality in relationship. One of the biggest challenges is for adult children to create those boundaries and the reaction of the parent. But it's my family, but it's my mom, but it's my dad. And the subsequent, but I only have one, or they won't live forever. They might, they're getting older. They need me. The parent has a hierarchy of relationships as well with themselves, God, themselves, their spouse. You are no longer obligated. I release you from the obligation to meet the needs of those higher relationships for them. It is not your job to parent your parents. It is not your job to fill the role of divine authority, self-authority, spousal authority. And even for as we get older and our parents lose spouses through death, divorce, estrangement, whatever, it is still not the adult child's job to fill that role. It's not. But it's my mom. She needs me. What about your internal self? What about your family? What about your spouse and your children? when that demand, that expectation, the obligation of parents to adult children is to divide loyalties, something must be addressed. Because it is one thing to talk about, yes, I know that my loyalty should be to God's self spouse first. And I'm not saying self in a way that means I get to do whatever I want. I'm talking about the responsibility that we have to the person that God created us to be, to develop ourselves, to grow and mature, and to set free the person God created us to be from all of the barnacles of life that have attached itself to how we present ourselves to the world. We have a responsibility to get some of those warts freezed off. Frozen off? Freeze? We'll go with freezed. Have some of those freezed off us so that we are more fully becoming the best version of ourselves. That's what I mean by ourselves, not that we get to indulge in all of our narcissistic fantasies. That's not what I'm talking about. But when we are called to relationships that we choose, spouse, family, children, we choose now to focus our loyalties differently. And that, by definition, requires the adult child and the parental relationship to have to be redefined. The words, but they're my fill in the blank, are never a valid justification for infringement on boundaries, for bulldozering. Adult children's parents can be some of the most bulldozering people, whether it's through passive aggressive means, overt means, whether it's just the drop on a stone over and over and over. Oh, did we talk about this already? Oh, well, maybe I'll talk about it again. Maybe we talk about it again. Maybe talk about it. You just get worn down. All of those tools are not allowed in relationships that are driven by love, in which we have equality. Relationships driven by love mean that both parties have the full right and authority to say no without fear of reprisal, where both parties have the right and authority to define the boundaries and limits of themselves for their best flourishing, for their best becoming the best versions of themselves without threat, without punishment, without the demands and expectations of all those obligations rearing their ugly heads, getting you back in line. There are times when it becomes necessary to create distance because those boundaries of equality are not being respected. There are times when things have been asked for, but things have been asked for, things have been asked for, and there's this constant, nope, this is how it is. Nope, this is how it is. No, this is how it's, no. Mm-mm. And then space must be found in order to choose autonomy, to choose personhood, to choose loyalty based on something other than the ick, the exhaustion of obligation. But they're my family is in no means a get out of jail free card for bad behavior. Full stop. But they're my family is not an all access pass to do whatever it is that we want to do to get what we want, however it's necessary to get it. On either side. Family is defined by love. There's that sticky part in the New Testament where Jesus encounters his family and he does not engage with them. We don't talk about this very often, but Jesus's mother and brothers probably sisters too, if the Bible was more inclusive languaged, come to where Jesus is doing ministry and they demand to see him. And Jesus says, who are these people? If they were my family, they would understand that I'm doing what my Father has called me to do. He was setting right priority and right loyalty. Was he rejecting them as people? I don't think so. But he goes on to say that those who do the will of my Father, meaning that they understand right priorities in where my loyalty lies, these are the people that are my family. He's creating a family built on an entirely different system than the demands of family obligation because we are related by blood or adoption. We don't talk about this very often. And in that culture at that time, holy moly, would this have been just extraordinarily upsetting because the very fabric of society was held at stake in this proclamation of Jesus, that family is created based on right priorities, based on rightly ordered loyalty. If my parent, as an adult child, is not releasing me to do what I know is my calling, my path of becoming the best version of myself, as best as I can name it, as I am pursuing God, as I am pursuing the best version of myself and offering loyalty to the relationships around me that I have chosen. These are the times in which we have to ask ourselves, are these people we call family acting like family? Do I get to choose how Jesus did when and where I engage? If you use that link as family to let people off the hook for bad behavior and at the same time let ourselves off the hook from having to engage with it, to wrestle with it, to do the work of it within ourselves, we're missing the whole point. We're taking an easy, non-self-reflective journey. What do you want to choose? Do you want relationships with your family? Speaking elders now, right? What we call elders, whether that's parents, whether that's older aunts and uncles or grandparents, whatever your family structure looks like. Do you want those relationships to be places of continued harm? If that's what you choose, then just know that there is a cost of that, not only for yourself, I hope that's obvious, but for the other people in your world that you have chosen to give loyalty to, your spouse, your children, the context of work or ministry that God has placed you in to do and be the presence of God in that context. You are extracting a cost from them by not engaging this. So what do you want to choose? Both options require work. Both options require self-reflection. Both options require risk and cost. What do you want to choose? Do you want to keep paying the price by just not dealing with it? Or do you want to pay the price of what brings the possibility of love, connection, goodness, mutuality, reciprocity, autonomy, choice, permission, respect? The list goes on. You're going to work either way. You're going to have feelings either way. What do you want to choose? Which bucket do you want to fill? But they're my family. Yes. What if we asked for something beyond what we've experienced in the past? What are the possibilities that something new and entirely different could be built from a new place based on a new question? But they're my family. What if that question became, and they're my family, so I wonder if, could this be created? We move from contrary, but to the inclusionary, and you are part of the family too. But they're my family acts as if you are not. Don't you get an equal seat at the table to be treated well? I think so. So if you find yourself in relationships with your family that do not reflect the characteristics of relationship that you would expect elsewhere, say with friends, from your spouse, it's time to re-examine. That's my invitation to you anyway. Let's re-examine. Are we choosing? Are we acquiescing? Are we avoiding? If we're going to do relationship like this, that means that I have a role too, not just them. What do you want to choose? Let me know, would you? I'd love to know if you make a different choice. Email me, direct message me, whatever it is. Love to have this conversation with you. So keep me posted. And we'll be back in our next installment to debunk another myth of what it means to cut the cord and to release relationships from obligation and to build them based on love, connection, and goodness. See you next time. Bye-bye.